Ableton gives you a number of tools for generating MIDI, but it can be confusing how to actually get what you want from those tools. So let's just say you want to create a bass line from a drum loop. You've got a drum loop you really like. How do you make a bass line from that thing? So here I have a drum loop. Now, I think the main issue, let's just make an instrument track, is that you want to use all the tools that Ableton gives you to manage generating that MIDI. So first, let's just get a good bass sound. That could be one thing right off the bat that people struggle with. I'm going to go to guitarbass.adv or just guitar bass. It should pop up in your window. This is an operator preset for Ableton, and it's really good. It sounds kind of like a bass guitar. You're playing it there. If you don't have operator, like you have a lower version of Ableton, you don't have access to this, but you could build this in Drift. And this is like a good place to start from. We can just go right in here, zoom in. Maybe I'll select a section of the loop. Hit Control L. Now I have a loop region. So it's going to play through as we're like coming up with bass parts. And what I'm going to do is change my project to a scale that I want to use. And this is going to come in handy later. So I'm going to go for C minor pentatonic. I just like that scale for making bass lines because it works really well, but you could pick whatever you want from here. And then I'm going to highlight this area and hit Control Shift M, or Command Shift M for Mac, I guess. And now we have a MIDI window we can work inside of. Now what I'm going to do in this window is you should see it look something like this. I'm going to hit Scale. That's going to consolidate everything down to picking only or seeing only scale notes. So as you generate MIDI or you edit MIDI, you're never really in danger of picking a note that isn't from that scale. So that's kind of the main idea. And then if you hit highlight scale, it's going to add color to that. So you're going to be even more aware if you're ever going outside that given scale. And that's basically what we're going to do. So now when I go down to this left side of the screen, you have all these options here. Generate is the one you want to pay attention to, at least for this video, because shape, which you can see in this drop-down menu right here, is one of the most useful kind of ways to get started with generating MIDI and having some control over the process. That's just my opinion. If I go to this drop-down menu, they give you all these shapes, and flat is just a flat line of notes. So this is what I do. I pay attention to these pitches here. This is starting pitch and end pitch. So it's like your pitch range. And I'm just going to type in C0. So I'm assuming, you might want to look at the loop that you're using, see if it's a loop that has a key signature in it. Of course, oftentimes those things are wrong, but you want to pay attention to something like that. And now what it's going to do when I hit generate, it's going to create those notes in 16th note patterns. So if we play this, we now have this 16th note pattern. Some people actually might want to stop right here. So obviously you can go in and just start muting things. I'm hitting 0 on the keyboard and you're creating syncopation around that loop, which can, for a lot of EDM people, this might be exactly where you want to be. But if you don't want 16th notes, let's go back here and unmute these things. We can also select all. We can hit Control 2, which will change it to 8th note subdivisions. Control 1 also goes to smaller subdivisions. Let's say we want to go to 8th notes, right? Then I go to generate, and now it's going to push them into 8th note subdivisions. And I could go in and mute things from there. So like I said, for a lot of EDM people, this might be golden already for you to just get started this way. But what we want to do is take it a step further. So if I click on this little note value, not the separate MIDI note, but the actual note value, it basically selects everything in that row of that note. Hit 0. Now that's muted. Why am I doing that? I want to stack other things. I want more pitches. So you can see all this highlighted space. We have all these scale degrees we could play around with. How do we actually use that stuff with the generate tools? Go over to the shapes, and we're going to select really anything you want, maybe bounce up. And what we got to do is pay attention once again to those pitch range values. So you could go for C0 to C1, which would be an octave value. For bass lines, if I think that I don't want to do some big jumps, I want to stay kind of in the low rumbly area, maybe I'm not going to do a full octave. I'll go G0 instead of C1. So this is going to be the equivalent of a fifth, which is generally like half of the scale, sort of. And then I just, hit generate. And now it's superimposing some more notes into this whole thing. I mean, we can listen to this. Pretty cool bass line on its own. And then, like I said before, at any point you can stop, you can start muting some things. If I want to go back to 16th notes, play around with that, I can hit generate. Again, it's going to give me this on 16th note values. Go in and start muting stuff, use your ear. And because I'm in a loop region, I can just let the music play and start, making decisions, just responding off of to what I hear. So within seconds, you have a bass line, and you can keep playing around with it even more. So you could take all of your notes, select all. I go to the transform part of the drop-down menus, and this is where you can start to mess with things that you already have when you have different pitches on the screen. So you can go to recombine, and recombine, we select shuffle and transform, and this will shuffle away. And now we're kind of playing around, and we just can give ourselves more ideas, respond to what we're listening to. And right off the bat, you have something that is, maybe inspiring. Now, where you can go from here is really cool because you can basically just swap out your instrument if you want to. Just make sure it's monophonic so that, the envelope and the attack and the voicing doesn't get all messy sounding. But if you wanted to then move into more of like, using more of this part of the Ableton screen where you can trigger stuff, it's actually very easy to get there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this, hit Control D or Command D on Mac. And now all of a sudden I have 8 areas, and I can just go into each one of these areas and do the same thing. Maybe I'm happy with the first one, but let's switch this one up, see what this looks like. And I'll just go through all of them and hit that transform button, and it will just change things up a little bit for us. So now I'm creating all these different versions of the bass line, and I could go in and, manually change these things, kind of speeding up the process. But let's just say at the end of this, you mess around with it all and you have 8 different versions that you kind of like all of them. You might want to use them in a live session format. All you have to do is go over here and right click, and we're going to go to consolidate time to new scene. If I hit tab, now I have that over in that side of the screen. I can do the same thing for all of these. So now all these will be stacked with the stuff that's playing around it. In this case, that drum loop will be all placed on the other screen. So now, if you want to be a little more non-linear about how you're making your bass lines and arranging your music, boom, you have everything in seconds in those cells, in those scenes, I think they call them. And you can just click away. You want to make sure that the drums are selected so that even if I turn off the loop region on this side of the screen, the music will continue playing even when we get over here, because we're controlling from this side of the screen. And you can see everything I select. I can see all these different bass lines and just mix and match. So yeah, this is a really neat way to get yourself started with a good bass sound and making ideas and generating them and getting some things kind of flowing. And if you're trying to learn more about just these workflow things with Ableton, or you need other things that you want to do with your music, I highly recommend a link in the description below. There's a whole Patreon platform I've been on for years on there, lots of exclusive tutorials. There's a whole MIDI royalty-free library. There's tons of Ableton presets. There's even a whole vocal production course for music producers, and you can promote your music there, which is a really cool thing. Very talented, supportive people in that community. Highly recommend it. A link is in the description below. But yeah, if you found this video useful, hit that like button and subscribe. I'll see you all soon. Have fun making music.